Since 2010, we have had the following games and DLCs, and brace yourself because it's quite a big list. Battlefield Bad Company 2, Bad Company 2 Vietnam, Battlefield Online, Battlefield Play for Free, Battlefield 3, and then the BF3 DLCs Back to Karkand, Close Quarters, Armoured Kill, Aftermath and Endgame. Then came Battlefield 4, the Battlefield 4 DLCs China Rising, Second Assault, Naval Strike, Dragon's Teeth, Final Stand, Night Operations, Community Operations and Legacy Operations. Then we had Battlefield Hardline, and the Battlefield Hardline DLCs Criminal Activity, Robbery, Blackout, Getaway and Betrayal. Then we had Battlefield 1 with the BF1 DLCs being They Shall Not Pass, In the Name of the Tsar, Turning Tides and Apocalypse. Then we had Battlefield 5, which hasn't strictly had DLCs, but we did have the Pacific Update, or Battlefield 5 Year 2 Edition, whatever you want to call it. In my opinion, it's essentially the same thing, like a DLC for Battlefield 5. That is a huge amount of content from the last decade, and it really proves that DICE are passionate about chucking as much as they can at us. Recently it's not really the same sort of speed in terms of maps with Battlefield 5, but if you look at the last decade, the amount of content that's come out of that studio is absolutely phenomenal. I think the most crazy thing as well is that you can actually go back and play all of that, bar maybe a couple of things like Battlefield Online and Play for Free, and you might not find a few of the DLC maps from Battlefield 3 or maybe Bad Company 2, but overall that content is still there and still available to play. I can go back and play all that DLC stuff from Battlefield 4, there are still servers running, it's still good fun, and for people who never played it on release, it's brand new content, it's fresh, go and try it out, because some of the best stuff in the Battlefield franchise can be found in that list. When it comes to the most popular Battlefield game of the previous decade, I really struggled to work it out. I did a poll on my YouTube channel, Westy also did one on his, and he did one on Twitter, and the results are a bit different. I've included them all in the background. Now my one on YouTube got 32,000 votes at the time of recording this video, with Battlefield Bad Company 2 at 6%, Battlefield 3 at 15%, Battlefield 5 at 21%, and then BF4 and BF1 tied at 29%. Now I think it's a bit biased because a lot of the players that enjoyed Bad Company 2 and BF3 no longer play Battlefield games. That can be seen in my Discord, especially with a lot of friends who I know were massive Battlefield, Bad Company 2 and BF3 players. They played a bit of BF4, some of them quite a lot of BF4, and then they stopped playing really with Battlefield 1 and BF5. Maybe they just stopped playing FPS games. I think mostly it just wasn't for them. With that though, we saw a massive influx of players with Battlefield 1, as players really came to the franchise, especially on the new gen consoles, after not really playing Battlefield 3 or Battlefield 4. They certainly never played Bad Company 2. The really interesting thing to take away from this though is how popular Battlefield 1 has been compared to Battlefield 5. You might be new to the franchise, maybe you just came for Battlefield 5, but it really shows you the high point of the franchise was kind of Battlefield 4 towards the end of its life and Battlefield 1. That was a real peak in the Battlefield franchise. Even Battlefield 3 though is still pulling 15% from these kind of newer players. I think that's still a very respectable score. Different slightly on Westy's. I'd say at the time it was clearly the most popular, even with Battlefield 4 coming out, Battlefield 3 was still probably the most popular game, but with BF1 being such a juggernaut, it has taken its place. Rightly or wrongly, they are the statistics. I wouldn't read into them too much, but it kind of shows you where the community is right now. To appease a lot of people, I will come out and say that in my opinion, the most popular and best Battlefield game from where I stand with my friendship group and with vehicle players, infantry players, you know, proper Battlefield fans, we went with Battlefield 4. Battlefield 3 was superb and is a 9 out of 10 game. At the time it was the most groundbreaking game I think I'd ever played. It was absolutely unforgettable. But Battlefield 4 encapsulates what Battlefield is all about. I played it the most, it had the most maps for me, the most unforgettable experiences, and was absolutely incredible. Battlefield 1 did something very special as well. It brought us the First World War, a gritty and really immersive experience with some very competent gunplay. The vehicles were a bit lackluster and some of the maps made me wonder a little bit, but overall, again, an 8 or 9 out of 10 experience. Battlefield 1 grew on me as well over time, which is the sign of a good game that has been developed well. The more I played it, the more I enjoyed it, and I went back to play it the other day, and bar the cheaters, and there are quite a few cheaters on BF1 now, which is a shame, the game's fantastic. Really, really good fun, and it made me play more infantry gameplay in Battlefield, which is something I really didn't do that much in Battlefield 4. Again, going back to BF3, I've been playing that game. There are some things which we'll get into in a bit which I don't like at all, but in terms of a game that's, 9 years old now? Just incredible. So, we've confirmed that, according to the polls that I undertook and Westy did on our YouTube channels and Twitter, that Battlefield 1 is by far and away the most popular game of the last couple of years, with Battlefield 4 being close behind. That's really, as I said before, not exactly indicative of the popularity of games because of just the type of players you have in the franchise at the minute. If we did that poll a few years ago, Battlefield 3 would have been far more popular as more BF3 players were involved in the community. Going back a bit further than that though, you had Bad Company 2, which at the time was incredibly popular. This game was groundbreaking in so many different ways, and at the time it was absolutely wonderful. Small maps, Rush being the centerpiece for the main mode, some incredible close quarters action with a few vehicles scattered around as well. Going back to it though, whilst nostalgic, isn't exactly perfect. The game looks pretty nice, and sure, there are servers still running, and you can kind of get to grips quite easily with what's going on. It's a Battlefield game. You have different classes, different loadouts, and vehicles and infantry working together in squads to cap objectives. But there are some serious shortcomings when it comes to what we're used to in modern FPS games. It's kind of clunky. Whilst fun, it does miss a few features. This might be why it didn't get the results that we may have hoped for in the poll, because Battlefield 3 did what Bad Company 2 did, but to a different level. With Battlefield 3, we have arguably the highlight of the Battlefield franchise career. Unfortunately, when you go back to it, as you can see in the background, sometimes you will be farmed by vehicle tryhards that haven't left the game since it came out in 2011, a long time ago. That being said, you can find servers, mainly Rush servers, that are incredibly fun, and here you can see me playing on Noshar Canal's Rush. It's right off the back of Noshar Canal's, coming on to the final few objectives. I think this is the second to last set. I'm a bit rusty with my Battlefield 3 knowledge because it has been a while since I played this game, and some of the gameplay as well is a little bit all over the place. That being said, it's one of those Battlefield games that you can just jump back on and enjoy. There were some serious metas in Battlefield 3, some weapons that you had to use. They were the most effective, and really, without using them, you were in trouble. I'm using the M16A3, one of my favourite weapons. The AN-94 was another that many people use. The maps are what separate Battlefield 3 though, for me. Whilst Noshar Rush isn't one of my favourites, it's okay at the start, maybe, but my favourites really are Damavand Peak, Grand Bazaar, Seine Crossing, those classic BF3 maps. It's still pretty good. You can see the map design. It's clear, hard cover, nice lanes, and it's pretty linear for the most part on the rush modes, and just good fun all round. Battlefield 3 is an excellent game, and is still well worth going back and playing. People do say that they want Battlefield 3 to be remade, kind of a modern interpretation of BF3 or a remaster. I am with them on that to some extent. My only problem is when you do a remake of a game that was so popular and so good back in the day, it's quite often a disappointment, and knowing DICE, they would do something to it to try and overhaul it and change it. I'm not really too sure how well it would be received. That being said, there are a few things I definitely would like to see changed. First of all, the servers. 10 Hz is not enough. You die around corners, sometimes you get absolutely no hit reg, other times you just 2-tap enemies. I think really having better servers would fix a lot of the issues that I have in Battlefield 3. Secondly, a few additional settings would be nice, not having to have a config file to put my FOV above 90. Maybe a few additional changes to the lighting because there's a lot of glare on this game. Suppression, not my cup of tea. And screen shake, again, it's over the top completely in Battlefield 3. That being said, although I'm not used to it, many people do adapt to it, and you can tell the tryhards that haven't stopped playing BF3 aren't just playing it for no reason. They're playing it because it's an excellent game. The gameplay you see in the background is just from the other day. I literally nipped on to play a bit of Hainan Resort. I wanted to get a clip in the LAV. I couldn't get an LAV, so I spawned in as an infantry player, jumped onto the central flag and started killing people, and that's Battlefield 4. You can just jump into any server, usually on Conquest, and start having fun. There's so much to do on this game, and it's really, really interesting. Visually, Battlefield 4 isn't quite as interesting as Battlefield 3. Yes, it doesn't have the blue filter, which is nice. The blue filter isn't everybody's choice. In my opinion, it's nice on some maps, not nice on others. But Battlefield 4 is a bit grey. I don't know if you've noticed that, but it is fairly grey. That being said, the gameplay more than makes up for it. The infantry is great. The manoeuvrability and movement with soldiers is really fun as well. I find like you can move around really accurately and retain a lot of momentum, which is great. The vehicles, that is what I love about BF4. There are so many to choose from, and it's one of those games where if you get bored in the tank, you can take the jet. If you get bored in the jet, you can take the attack helicopter. There's so much variety and so many different ways to play the vehicles and master them. That's why so many people come back to play it. There's so much to do, and the game doesn't hold your hand trying to get you used to things. You have to learn it. There's a skill ceiling. There's a lot to learn there. You want to watch YouTube videos to learn the loadouts, to get better, to learn the tips and tricks. You want to watch people stream it. It was just really interesting. Of course, I couldn't make a Battlefield list from 2010 to 2019 without including Battlefield Hardline, a game that can be described, in my opinion, in one word, and that is potential. Hardline was not a great Battlefield game, in my opinion. The setting was all wrong. Cops and robbers didn't work. The other parts of the game, though, the gunplay, the movement, it was like Battlefield 4, but slightly improved. I felt like it was a game that had so much potential, and if they had set it in a different environment, different locations, maybe just a different scenario altogether, it would have succeeded far better. If they'd gone for classic modes instead of Hotwire and all these other modes, if they'd gone for Conquest, Rush, maybe even introduced a Frontlines or Chainlink mode and a Gunmaster mode, and then had it in a modern setting, almost like a continuation of Battlefield 4, like a DLC for BF4, what Vietnam was back in the day, or maybe what the Pacific is to BF5, I think it would have been far more successful. That being said, I did play it a little bit. I know a lot of people still play it now. There's a few servers running on PC. Probably the least popular game in this list, and wasn't really represented fairly on any of the polls. That being said, has to be included. Potential describes it perfectly. Moving on to Battlefield 1, a game that I've enjoyed more the longer time has gone on. When it came out, I didn't like it. I didn't like the alpha, I didn't like the beta, I didn't like the vehicles, I didn't like the gunplay. To be honest, I didn't really like World War 1 either. Although DICE did a great job, the atmosphere was everything, it wasn't for me. So I kept on playing Battlefield 4 for about 2 years. BF1 though grew on me, and I really think that I've got 600-700 hours in Battlefield 1, most of which, bar a few clips you'll see in the background, I enjoyed. I went back and played it the other day. 9 out of 10 experience, bar the cheaters. You're always going to get cheaters on older games, which is a shame. I just thought it was great. The gun balance is supreme, and I'd say that it does something a lot of other Battlefield games have failed to do. It recreates the atmosphere of the time period perfectly, and is very individual. It's quite gritty. There's a bit of comedy in there as well with the voice lines, kind of Battlefield 3 style comedy with the voice lines. The vehicles are interesting, and DICE did quite a good job for what they had to work with. World War 1 not being a very interesting time period really for fast-paced vehicles, not like you have in BF3 and BF4. Gunplay is fantastic. The medic class is just amazing to work with. The maps are good. It's large scale with interesting close quarters flags. Just a great mixture, and a game that I think is a 9 out of 10 experience at its best. Next up, and finally, it's Battlefield 5. The clip you see at the background right at the start is from one of the first games I played in the closed alpha. I get run over by a towable and bleed out on the ground. This is a clip from the other week. It doesn't really look too different, but a lot of stuff has changed in Battlefield 5, and if I had to pick one word to describe this game, well, it would either be controversial or roller coaster, and right now we're in a dip. Battlefield 5 is a game with a lot of potential behind it, but seemingly developers and project leaders, or whatever you want to call them, that have no interest in listening to the community and really creating what we want. As you can see, that revive bug is back in the game, the TTK has changed, spotting is back, and well, it's just a bit of a mess. I have played the game for 400 hours or so I can't say that I haven't had my money's worth. I just feel like DICE could have really done a lot more with the potential a World War II Battlefield title had. When compared to Battlefield 1, BF5 is really nowhere on the polls. It is right near the bottom. I think maybe there's a bit of outrage there. A lot of people who enjoy it will just say they enjoy it no matter what happens to them or what the game is updated with, because they're just that sort of person that likes the modern game. A few people might enjoy Battlefield 5. The majority are probably outraged at the recent TTK changes. I'd be interested to see how this game does in a poll at the end of next year, considering DICE will have another year to update the game. So let me know in the comments what your favourite Battlefield game is. Maybe do a little list. I'm not sure what you want to do, but I'm pretty certain most people will vote on this channel for either BF3 or BF4. There might be quite a lot of BF1 fans out there. I don't think we'll get too many Bad Company 2 or Battlefield 5 or Battlefield Hardline fans, but let's see. I'll make sure to read and reply to the comments as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.